Hi everyone, and welcome to The Pulse. I'm Rebecca, the local public health nurse here in Middleborough. February is Heart Health Month and a time to focus on heart disease, prevention, and life-saving skills. Did you know that someone in the U.S. dies from heart disease every 34 seconds? That's why knowing the signs of cardiac emergencies, understanding how AEDs work, and being confident in CPR can literally save lives. Today I'm joined here with Katie McBrien, who volunteers with Cardiac Crusade and the Pulse Point Foundation. Katie has been working with the Middleborough Public Schools to map AEDs and make them visible to 911 dispatch, which helps save precious time in emergencies. Hi, Katie. Thanks so much for joining with us today.
Hi, Becca. Thank you so much for having me on such an important conversation to continue in the community.
Awesome. Well, we're going to cover in this podcast heart health, AEDs, CPR, and ways listeners can help make our town safer. Katie, can you share a little bit about your personal story and what inspired you to focus on AED awareness?
Yes. Just about 1 year ago today, my partner suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. I had zero understanding between the difference of heart attack and sudden cardiac arrest. Coincidentally, I had just been certified 5 weeks prior by my current employer as required, and it was a day where Matt was actually off, so I leave at 5:40 in the morning. I didn't want to bother him. It was his day off. I figured I'd see him on my break, and I was out in the kitchen, and I heard a toilet flush, so I said, oh, he's awake. I'll go say goodbye. Have a good day. And as I went into the master bathroom, he was standing at the sink, and I watched him completely collapse, which at first I was thinking, hey, what's going on? What,
you think
did you stand
doing
up
a
too
joke
fast?
Or something?
Exactly. Did you pass out? I rubbed his back. I'm like, did you stand up too quickly? And he was completely non-responsive. Not a breath, not a movement, no response to my voice whatsoever. And there were a couple of other personal things that occurred that alarmed me, and I dialed 911. He happened to fall in an area which was a very, very narrow doorway. And I've always said I could muscle a 400-pound person over like that, but he was in such a tight doorway, I couldn't turn him over. Thankfully, I have an apartment in my basement, and I have a tenant, and I ran downstairs. I let the 911 know that I was going to get somebody. This was at 5:10 in the morning, 5:15 or so, and I alarmed him awake, and he ran upstairs, and he helped me to flip Matt over, and I just immediately started CPR. Clearly because of 911, responding officers and rescue were on their way. And I just started hard, high-quality CPR. Sudden cardiac arrests are not just silent. He was making noises. I thought he was breathing. He wasn't breathing. And when the police officer came, he took over from me. And when the ambulance came, they took over from him and kind of moved me out of the way. What I learned later was they had applied a Lucas device, which is automatic compressions to continue the CPR, and immediately put an AED on him, which got his heart started again. What we learned from all the records is that he was without any attention for over 4 minutes.
Wow.
And it was close to 7 minutes before CPR was actually started. He's a miracle. I've learned the unfortunate staggering statistics of sudden cardiac arrest. Nationwide, I believe it's 10% survival rate out of hospitals. Sudden cardiac arrests are a little bit less than that. And he's a true miracle because of the AED and because of immediate CPR.
Well, first and foremost, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that experience. Thankfully, you were there. Thankfully, you knew you had just had that training.
Right.
Because CPR is no joke. It's hard to do, especially in a narrow space. And just in that moment, I'm sure you're frantic. And I mean, I've given CPR, and at first, before I was 15 when I first gave CPR.
Wow.
And before I was a nurse, before it was even a inkling on my future journey.
Right.
And it's terrifying. It is a moment that you were like, oh my God, what do I do? Like,
I feel like I have a memory that actually resurfaced as a result of this situation. At being at an Apple festival when I was in my 20s, and somebody dropped, and I was CPR certified, and I froze in my 20s. Now I feel like I'm on high alert, not to a bad degree, but I know that if something happened, I would take action without.
And you'll know the steps.
Without a step being dropped. Yeah.
I mean, thankfully Matt's okay, and he's still with us, and I can even tell, like, even just reliving this is kind of a lot for you. So thank you for. A lot. I can't even imagine being in that situation, to see your partner just drop, and I'm speechless. And I mean, thankfully you're a miracle to know how to know what to do, and thankfully, the responders were quickly and moving, and
we've met all of the responders. They've been amazing. I live on the Cape. I taught in my hometown. Obviously, these are the responders from my hometown. A couple of them were my students. It was really pretty wild, like in a really positive way. But with those staggering statistics, like even if there's survival outside of the 10%, if they survive, that 10% is just some survivors can have debilitating residual effects for the remainder of their life. We belong to a sudden cardiac arrest survival and responder Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And Matt is really so, he's blessed. He's, like I said, he's a miracle. Some people are learning how to walk again, and some people have deficiencies that are just debilitating for the rest of their lives. So he's incredibly lucky, in light of the fact that CPR didn't start for close to 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, does Matt have any residuals? Does he remember the experience at all?
He doesn't remember the experience at all. As a matter of fact, he will say, I have no PTSD. I don't have any trauma because I don't remember it. I definitely was struggling with quite a bit. I'm way better now.
I'm sure you watch him at every corner.
There's just some things like, he has a defibrillator in his chest now, so that's peace of mind, but you can't just help to see what you've seen, know, and to know that it can really happen in the community anywhere, which kind of leads into this whole AED thing. But he came home from the hospital after 6 days. He walked a mile the first day and committed to moving every day. And after 3 days, he upped it to 2. This was a guy who ran 2 Boston half marathons. Like, we're pretty healthy. We're very active. And so we understand that his recovery might be a little bit better because he is that type of person.
Right.
But he had signed up in the fall for a half marathon, and 3 months to the day, May 3rd, his cardiac arrest was on February 3rd. He ran a half marathon in May, which is pretty miraculous, but again, it's because of the care that he received.
Right.
I cannot give enough credit to the responders who came after me, who took care of him after me, and the doctors and the ICU people and the emergency department, everybody.
That is incredible that he was able to run a half marathon you said 3 months after?
3 months to the day.
That's wild. I can't even run one now.
I know. I know. It really is miraculous. It wasn't his best, and he wasn't super fast or any of that, but he was like, I'm going to try. And he was slow, but he really checked that box.
Yeah, set his goal, and he totally took it out of the park.
Right.
I mean, that is so impressive.
Interestingly enough, just to note on this part of it, we understand that there are many reasons why cardiac arrests occur. However, I think it's worth noting that in Matt's case, his was idiopathic, which means, you know what it means, but for the audience, there is zero reason why it happened to him. So with all the testing in the hospital and follow-ups with cardiologists and whatnot, his valves are fine. His chambers are great. His ejection fraction, like why should I even know that, is really good. And his pipes are clear, like no clogs. There was zero reason why this happened, which I think is actually one of the reasons why I still feel a little scared about it, is because it could happen to anyone,
right,
anytime, at any age, without reason. It was like the lamp was pulled out of the wall and he just went down.
That is it's such a good point to bring up, because, we think like, oh, as I get older, I'm more at risk for heart attacks or so on and so forth. But there are the idiopathic and it has no bias, like you said, like anytime, anywhere. And I think that kind of leads us on into talking about the AEDs
right.
and CPR and just how precious that time is.
Right.
And just like the moments are precious and they are valuable, and it can make a huge difference between life and death.
Right.
Just some other educational notes for the listeners. Sudden cardiac arrest can, as we said, happen to anyone, any age, sometimes without warning. Sometimes there are symptoms, which you can follow along with in our presentation that will be tagged along with this. But AEDs are safe and designed for public use. You don't need to be a medical professional to use them. So we're going to go ahead and talk on into AEDs and CPRs. But before we do that, let's go ahead and also kind of touch base on some heart health facts. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for both men and women in the United States. Some risk factors, if it isn't idiopathic, include high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, diabetes, obesity, and inactivity. Sudden cardiac arrest can occur without any prior symptoms, as we just mentioned. As Katie had mentioned, healthy people can experience cardiac emergencies, which is why education and preparedness are so important. If we wanted to go ahead and talk about some practical tips for protecting your heart, know your blood pressure, your cholesterol numbers. We aim for 120/80, so be sure to be making sure that when you take your blood pressure, your cuff is the correct size, you're putting it in the correct spot. Maintain a healthy diet and exercise regularly. I truly believe Matt being active kind of made a difference in his story. And recognize the warning signs if there are any, such as chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, and fainting. Prevention is important. Emergencies can still happen. That's why knowing CPR and AED locations is essential. Katie, can you explain what an AED is and how it works?
I'll try my best.
I'll jump in if you need some help.
Okay, thank you. So the sudden cardiac arrest is really, they call a heart attack a plumbing problem and a sudden cardiac arrest an electrical problem. So the AED, which stands for Automated External Defibrillator, it's external by pads being placed on your body in two separate locations. If anyone ever needs to use one, they're completely guided through a device that actually talks to you, speaks to you. The pads are set up so that they tell you exactly where to have them placed on your body. The body, it'll tell you when to move away, when it is administering a shock, whether or not that resulted in a heart rhythm being restored, or whether or not they need to continue CPR and have another shock be administered. They seem like they could be scary and complicated devices when in fact they actually seem like they're fairly simple. They have a AED pack would have a pair of scissors in there, so you could cut the shirt open. You have to have the pads on skin. I think they even have a razor, because if there's hair, it needs to be shaved so that you get good contact for the best shock for the person.
Yeah, definitely. And so what an AED is just as Katie said, it's literally delivering a shock to get that heart, it's analyzing and then getting that heart rhythm back into normal normal rhythm. Knowing where an AED in your home, workplace, or community can save precious time. They're often located in gyms, schools, libraries, and town halls. I know in our town hall in Middleborough, we have one on each floor, and making an AEDs visible to 911 dispatchers ensures that responders or bystanders can quickly find them during an emergency. Can you explain how an AED mapping works in the schools and kind of what your initiative is?
Right. So basically, we had really begun with an abundance of gratitude. We were so grateful for Matt's outcome and so thankful for the care that he received that we needed to pay it forward in any way that we could. The two different things that we're doing, home-based CPR and AED mapping, pretty much began simultaneously. But let's talk about the AED mapping first. I became aware of a group called Cardiac Crusade through the Facebook page that we belong to for sudden cardiac arrest survivors and responders. And the leader, Greg Kuhn of Cardiac Crusade, had said that they had launched their Boston campaign to map 1,500 AEDs in Massachusetts, in Boston. And I know that this group that I belong to is nationwide and somewhat international. So I thought, oh, Boston, that's like my backyard. Let me learn a little bit more about this. What is this? And maybe I can help. So that's where it really all began. And in fact, the initiative for the Boston campaign ends tomorrow on Valentine's Day. And we got trained online, 30, 40 minutes for an online training to go out and map AEDs, which means this: find them, take a picture of them, upload the picture, the address, the specific location within the building, and by doing so through the Pulse Point app, that uploads directly to 911. So when anybody calls 911, clearly we know that rescue is on their way. But sometimes, like there's minutes, and minutes matter, seconds matter. And so when the volunteers map AED locations, the 911 call taker can actually say, you continue CPR, rescue is on their way. They're about 4 minutes out. If there's another person, send them next door to XYZ. Blah, blah, blah restaurant. They've got an AED, get it and administer it on the person. That could be done minutes before the rescue ambulance actually arrives on scene. And we do know that the AEDs are in schools, public buildings, sports centers, etc. We know that, but not everybody knows that.
And we don't know where they are.
Exactly.
You're going to waste valuable minutes looking for it.
And I was thinking about that too. As a retired teacher, I know that they were in my building, but I'm thinking back, do I know exactly where they were in my building? And I feel like they need to be part of, back to school training or something like that, where you take a tour within your building to know exactly where they are, where you spend most of your time.
100%, and I couldn't agree more. And just going off of that, I think it's very important, for the establishments and even as just a guest in a facility, if you notice that something is wrong with the AED, or if you don't see that light with a check mark, make sure that you're bringing that to the attention of anyone in that office, because there's been a couple times where I've gone to certain places and been like, hey, your AED's not working.
Right.
So just bringing it to the attention, that could make all the difference in an emergency.
Right. That's right. I do feel like, for an example, when you go on the Cardiac Crusade site, there was a staggering statistic that's pretty much broadcast right on their first page. There are approximately 60 AEDs mapped when this was put up in the city of Phoenix, which still kind of leads to that 10% survival estimated rate for sudden cardiac arrest survival rate. Conversely, in the city of San Diego, they have 2,700 AEDs mapped, and their survival rate is like 50+%.
So it makes a huge difference.
It makes a massive, massive difference.
Do you know what the numbers are here in Massachusetts?
I actually started to look that up, and I was looking it up by state, and they basically were talking about in rural areas, it's it's down to like 2.4%.
Oh, wow.
But in areas where mapping has really taken off, the numbers are getting better. And that's all we're looking for the numbers to get better, for people to survive. So I could have done CPR all day long on Matt. That never would have saved him. It never would have restarted his heart. I feel like people will say, CPR, that's it. And it kind of is. But without the AED in situations like this, the person is dead. They will not survive.
You need to really get that heart rate shocked and back in rhythm.
It has to get back in rhythm. This might sound a little bit corny, but having begun volunteering through Cardiac Crusade and Pulse Point, I really now feel like AEDs are like the microwave of the couple of decades ago. So, or the cell phone or the air fryer. Everybody's got them, right? Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has a microwave. Everybody has an air fryer. I actually think AEDs are going to be everywhere when people really understand the need for them. So, an example, you probably heard this, and hopefully our audience has too. 3 nights ago in Belmont, Massachusetts, at a middle school basketball game, the Belmont coach noticed that the opposing coach was face down on the court. He had suffered something, heart attack or cardiac arrest. Immediately, the home Belmont coach started CPR, and AED was on that man within a minute. I mean, if you listen to the interviews with the survivor, the opposing coach, he's so emotional. He's so emotional because of the immediate care that he received.
And that just goes to show, like, it is so important to know what to do in that situation. Right. And because there's been times where, even as a nurse, that I'm like, oh no, like, I freeze in certain situations. Right. And then, of course, I, like, snap out of it.
Right.
But, like, thank God that coach knew what to do. Thank God you knew what to do,
right.
You know? And so I think that kind of leads into, like, CPR and knowing what to do. And if you could talk a little bit about how you, teach CPR. And I'm also CPR certified. I teach through the towns, so.
Right. So I started with the volunteering with the AED mapping, and that actually led me to Nicole Mello.
Yes,
who
my predecessor.
Who is the nursing coordinator for Middleborough Public Schools. And everybody, I have to say, through the Middleborough Public Schools has been amazing. And it took me a little while to kind of get to Nicole, but the superintendent was great, forwarding my email to the person who really, Nicole took action. We met, had a great meeting. And I think if people don't understand the uploading of information to 911, that's the big part of it, that having AEDs, but when they're mapped and they're uploaded, 911 can talk to you about specifically where it is. So in the town of Middleborough, she, I believe, is really taking care of having the schools mapped, the town buildings, either she or I or you can map the town buildings. And then after that, it's either you kind of just go out willy-nilly or you kind of door knock. And so I have mapped the YMCA here in town, Hannaford's, Reed's Academy, a hot yoga studio, and either I just saw them or somebody mentioned it to me through social media, and so I went after it. But in regards to the CPR, I thought, how can I move it forward to really encourage people to get CPR certified? And so I started small. I think I will keep it pretty small. So I don't actually do the instructing. The person who I partner with is a former paramedic, retired paramedic with the Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills Fire Department. And we now do home-based CPR classes in my house. And so I figured, why not start small? Let's see if he likes it. If he likes it, let's keep doing it. We limited it to a class size of 10 at first. We filled it. We had a waiting list. We have a waiting list of 7 people. I reached out for feedback afterwards. Everyone gave super positive feedback. His instruction style is amazing. I just kind of shimmied some furniture to make space. I put it out to my book club and my run club first, and I got enough people through, a group of people who I'm intimate with and I know. So these are people who, and neighbors. And so that was kind of like my test group. And so after my second class, which will be in March, I will probably open it up to the town page on Facebook and encourage people to sign up. They don't have to travel. I'm right in town. All I'm doing is opening my home, put a little snacks out, things like that. But he's the one who's instructing. They get their certification. All the people who were in the first class, they were like, I could easily see going back for a refresher. Just they feel ready. And that's what we want, right? We want people to feel ready to take action so that they know what to do. It can't actually be any easier. Back in the day, it was tilt the chin, rescue breaths, do the CPR compressions, breathe, CPR compressions.
And you got nervous if you missed his part.
Exactly. And there's not that anymore at all. It is compressions only. And it can't be easier. But it's not super simple. There's a lot to it, which the instructor can go over.
Definitely. Just going off a little bit about that. So here in Middleborough, so I have done, as a nurse, I am CPR certified and have been through, my journey of nursing school through journey. I have to re-up it once I get expired. Here in Middleborough, it was one of the initiatives that I wanted to start, teaching to the town employees because, God forbid, you're walking down the street. I wanted more than just me and the EMS, I wanted everyone to know what to do, and even in your own homes or so on and so forth. And so I actually partnered with Coastal Ambulance to bring CPR classes, CPR classes to the town,
Sure.
Oh, I got a tickle in my throat. I actually partnered with Coastal Ambulance to bring CPR classes to here in the town employees, and we did open it up to the community. We did, I want to say, 4 classes. Each one was completely filled. I myself went and attended, I believe, 3 out of the 4 classes. Okay. I believe in, repetitiveness, and I've been thankful enough to not have to do CPR all that often, but you can never be too prepared.
Well, like you were saying, it's the repetitiveness, right? You want
builds confidence,
repeated, right? And muscle memory.
Right, exactly.
I feel like once, I'm kind of not a one and done girl, right? I need to watch videos.
With anything, I'm a hands-on learner.
Exactly.
I will go and do multiple things. So as you're saying, like creating that muscle memory. And then through Coastal Ambulance, I wanted to have the ability to teach more classes. So I was thankful enough to get funding to go and get CPR instructor certified through the American Red Cross. And right now we're in the process of, getting mannequins and so forth. And so we'll be opening that up to the community. And we'll be partnering with High Point Prevention. You'll see it, I believe it's March 24th at 10. We're doing our Narcan training, and we're partnering that with the CPR training.
Beautiful.
So bringing more education to the town. And
that's great.
And then I am full-heartedly so excited to work with you to map the AEDs.
Yeah, it's really, I just actually got my 22-year-old daughter on board. She just sat in another room, did the online training course, super easy. You send in your certification of having completed online training, set up your profile like I am a mapper, and she sent it in, and she actually went out and mapped her first. She's only gotten one so far, but she just did it the other day. And moving forward, it leads me to a thought that, there are some times where, like walking into Hannaford's or BJ's, I was like, oh, there's an AED, boop, and I took the picture, and I uploaded it right there, or I did it in my car. As long as you have the specific information, something like it's to the left of the men's room, to the right of the bookcase on the wall. Like you need really specific information. You could actually take the picture and do it at home.
Right.
Interestingly enough, I just received about 7 text messages this morning from a neighbor of mine who stayed at a Hilton at Logan Airport last night, sent me a couple pictures from the
Oh,
Hilton.
amazing.
And then 4 from the terminal. And she gave me little descriptions. And she's not a mapper or verifier. I am. So I can upload about 8 AEDs right now. And we know that they're all over the airports, and we know things like that. But when you can get the specific information, again, 2nd floor, take a left. It's on the blue wall in the bookcase. We were, Matt and I were heading down Cape the other day, and we stopped at the Katuitt Center for the Arts, and there was an AED there, so we mapped it. And then we ended up at a restaurant in Yarmouth. There's an AED behind the TV. And so, oh my God, there you are at the restaurant. Go ahead, let's map that AED.
Right.
You just never know where you're going to find them. So sometimes it's as easy as taking a picture. Other times it is a little having a conversation. They're like, I don't know, I need to speak to my manager. I don't know if we should be taking pictures inside this office. And that's okay. I will either make an appointment with the manager, or I'll write the manager an email and I'll explain what I do or ask for a meeting and come back another day if they're not available. But I think for some people it might be a little kind of like, what are you doing? They don't understand it.
Right. And I think that's one reason why I think that doing the things that you do and coming on this podcast and just, looping me in, like, we can spread the word
That's
of
what
this.
it's all about.
And exactly. And, I think, prior, of course, because I'm a nurse, I've heard of Cardiac Crusaders, but I bet some of our listeners haven't heard of them. And the Pulse Point app. And, recently I was at Oak Point. I do presentations there once a month, and this month was Heart Health Month. And so we talked about, stroke signs, heart attack, CAD. And then I actually knew that we would be talking.
Yes.
And so I kind of put a little bug in their ear, being like, oh yeah, like Pulse Point, this is it. And, we did have some people who were interested in, becoming the mappers.
Right.
And so, of course, as we discussed, we'll get you into Oak Point and to meet with these people.
That'd be nice.
And
That'd be nice. One of the things, just for the audience to know, is that I kind of thought, because he was kicking off the Boston campaign, that I was kind of limited to, here I am in Middleborough and down on the Cape. And he said, wherever you are. So 2 weeks later, we were up in Maine, and I texted him, and I'm like, can I do it up in Maine? He's like, you do it wherever you can do it.
Right. The
Like,
more the merrier.
Exactly. So more volunteers that come on board. There might be a lot that are already mapped here, and there's probably a ton that are still
not
out there
right
that we don't know about. So to get more volunteers for Cardiac Crusade and mapping through Pulse Point is perfect.
Right. And the more volunteers you have, the more they're probably going on vacations, and, they're going to take pictures.
That's
and
right.
Spread the word, get all the AEDs mapped,
Right. That's exactly right.
And then let's see, what else can we discuss?
So one of the other things I just wanted to mention is that sometimes we seem like we're one person trying to get out a message. And if you're really sharing a lot on Facebook, a lot of people, friends or whoever, could be like, oh boy, here we go again. Like, okay, that again. And again, I could have been one of those people until it happened to me. And I feel as though I'm doing a service to people by informing them. And if they want to listen, great. If they don't want to, that's okay. But you probably saw the T-shirt that Matt was wearing with a straight line and I'm back, because that's literally what happened. Like
yeah.
For him. And we bought him a license plate cover, so he's driving on the highway, and it says "Saved by CPR, get certified." And people could look at that and be like, "Yeah, I should probably take a CPR class."
And honestly, anyone can do CPR.
Right.
Like, there is, in even some of the classes that I offer, like, it's not just it's hands-only CPR. It's, you don't have to do the rescue breaths anymore. It
really can't be any
right.
easier.
It really is. And then the AED, as we discussed, it tells you exactly what to do.
Right.
And, the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to, I'm drawing a blank of what I want to say. If you do nothing is going to happen. If you at least try with an AED or CPR.
Oh, they say that, right? They say the worst CPR is no CPR.
Exactly, right?
So if you're trying, the instructors, and I'm sure as an instructor yourself, you also, like the guy who taught my class was like, you're reaching for the floor. You probably will hear the ribs break. Like he said, you're just every single compression. You want the mindset that you're reaching for that floor, and there's so much to it, but no CPR is worse
than wrong CPR.
Than wrong CPR.
And, CPR is literally pushing that blood through the body, that oxygenated blood. And then when it comes to CPR, and if you were to break a rib, there is the Good Samaritan law, which protects. Right. I think a lot of people are worried to do CPR because they might hurt someone, which at the end of the day, they're already hurt. So, again, no CPR is worse than wrong CPR, and you are protected by the Good Samaritan law. So just a note, there is a lot of information on that. Feel free to dig into it a little bit.
I would like to mention that if people are watching this podcast and they take note of an AED in a particular location, I would love for you to share that information with Becca or myself. I don't know if my contact information
we'll
can
post
be put
it on the bottom.
Yeah. Or Nicole Mello, because the audience is everywhere. And we're not places where some people are. And so if there's an AED that's noticed, or even if you ask, because you can't see it. For an example, I was at my dentist 3 or 4 months ago, and there was one that was visible. And as I was mapping it, the receptionist said, we have another one on our second floor. And I went up there, but it's in a closet. And so I mapped that one too. But if an event happened on the second floor, if somebody went into cardiac arrest on the second floor, they know where it is. But just in case, 911 would know it's in the closet on the second floor.
Instead of having them run down to the first floor and waste those valuable minutes.
Go for the one that's visible.
Right. And, all through Town Hall, there was a couple hidden ones. Not just Town Hall, through the town of Middleborough, sure. I've noticed, throughout town, there are a couple hidden ones. And, that's why I'm so thankful that you were able to reach Nicole Mello, who was then able to loop me in, as she was my predecessor. And now she works for the schools. And this is a great initiative, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
You know what I thought was really interesting that she shared with me? She said that, and actually I'll bring this to other towns that I work with, the physical education teacher, when he would take classes outside for gym class, he would take the AED that was in the gym. And then they started thinking, well, that leaves us without one in the gym.
In the school, right.
So they bought another one, and he takes an AED outside to PE class every time he goes out.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. And I will tell you, knowing through just the group that we're involved with now, there's 7-year-olds who have had cardiac arrests. Mm-hmm. There are men, women, you just never know who it might happen to. So.
Anytime, anywhere, any person.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, one thing that I hope for the future is that, as you said, that it is the microwave, it is the cell phone, that everyone will have one in their households. It's kind of shocking that not a lot of people even do already with such a life-saving thing. They are expensive, but they are worth every penny.
Right,
so.
Exactly. They are.
What advice would you give people, organizations, or businesses who want to get involved in any of the mapping? Can you kind of go along with what website it is that you would go get mapped, or?
Absolutely. First, I would just urge any business owner to consider purchasing an AED for their location. I just cannot stress enough how minutes matter, and I will break it down to seconds matter. There was a statistic page that I was looking at prior to coming for this interview, that 0 to 4 minutes, maybe not so much damage, but your brain cells are literally dying after 4 minutes.
100%.
And rescue can't really get there that fast on the average, right?
Right.
So, and the gentleman who hosted the CPR class, or ran the CPR class at my house, was saying upwards of really 7, 8, you're going to have brain damage. You are having brain damage. 10, you kind of are in a vegetative state,
right,
for the rest of your life. That's really heartbreaking to hear if you have access to the AED, like you could get that guy back. Think about the Belmont basketball coach, and I would have people look that up. It's a very impressive story. So for the community of Middleborough and any other community, I would seriously consider purchasing an AED for your business. Cardiac Crusade, if you literally just type in Cardiac Crusade, you'll find that website, pulsepoint.org, same thing. There are cards that I will give to Becca. There are links to purchase AEDs. They're not salespeople. They are 501c3s or something like that, nonprofit organizations, both of them. They are not out to make money at all.
They're out to save lives.
They are out to save lives. And so there are references for this. If you scroll a little bit on the Cardiac Crusade site, it actually says something along the lines of get trained now. And you just click on it, and it's about 30 to 40 minutes of online training. And then you're a verifier. You're a mapper. Mm-hmm. If you are not getting an AED for your business, if you can, and actually if you do get an AED for your business, these have become kind of the thing also. When you put these on your front door, like the community knows, even if I don't shop at that particular store, oh my gosh, there's an AED in that store. So these are being stuck on the front doors of a lot of businesses these days. But if you aren't purchasing one for your own business, know where they are in your surrounding businesses. I did become aware that Wegmans, Hannaford's, Giant, Lowe's, I can't remember off the top of my head, they commit to having 2 AEDs in every store, and often somebody on their
team,
on their employee team who is trained. Like they commit to that. So another little initiative that I'm working on, it's not going so great so far, is I'm going for those corporate-owned companies, like the LL Beans, the dollar stores, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar. I've been in communication. I can't even remember who I've emailed, but really the give for these corporations would be very little to make a huge impact.
Difference, right?
A huge impact. So I'm kind of working on that, and I'm sending a lot of data and a lot of information, even for the people who I've communicated with, who aren't really ready to take that next step, and that's okay.
Putting it in their ear.
My protocol is we call 911, and I'm like, yes.
Right.
Let's
add to that.
Right. So like the microwave.
Right.
And
exactly.
the air fryer.
Exactly.
Right? This will be the thing. I know it will be.
I full-heartedly believe that as well.
Right.
And it should be the thing.
Right.
And
so I was suggested by another person I was talking to, and either you or Nicole might know this, but like ball fields in town, somebody was saying some of their snack shacks they've seen AEDs, like an AED in the back there. Mm-hmm. So I might not have access to those. I live and work on the Cape, but I'm up here twice a day. So my time up here is actually pretty short. So if other people in the Middleborough community can start looking at places like rinks or ball fields,
definitely,
things like that,
and I would be happy to take that on myself as well and start that initiative, because I want Middleborough, all of them mapped.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great.
Surrounding towns.
That's right.
And I'm part of an organization, the Public Health Nurses of Massachusetts. I do have a meeting next week. I will be bringing this to their attention and hopefully, getting them and their health departments and getting the word out, because I think it's such an important initiative, coming from someone who has had, in their families, heart attacks, strokes, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's near dear to my heart, and it makes all the difference.
Right.
So.
Right. Good. That's great.
Do you have any last minute messages you'd like to tell to the audience?
I'm grateful for, it's funny how the world works, right? I retired as a teacher and took on a little part-time job, which then became a full-time job that required me to be CPR certified, which I am so grateful for. And there's just no way I could imagine not trying to move things forward. So whether it's through the AED mapping or the home-based CPR classes or speaking with larger corporations and really putting the word out through the communities. I met with the EMS officer in my hometown, who was great, and he's really starting to run CPR classes like you are, and also talk to organizations like NEAR, National Emergency AED Registry.
Oh,
right?
great,
So,
yeah.
So that's like the big overarching umbrella group that is aware of where all the AEDs are. It's other than financial, there's no reason why people shouldn't have an AED. As you had mentioned, there's a Good Samaritan law. Like, you cannot, if somebody uses your AED, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think if somebody uses an AED when the ambulance comes, that AED goes in the ambulance with them to the hospital.
Yes, I believe
back,
so.
But they have to read the data. So you'll get it back, but you can never get in trouble.
Exactly.
For trying to help.
Right. And as we said before, the worst CPR is no CPR.
Right.
All the minutes, they are precious. They make a difference.
Right.
And I'm happy to be a part of this initiative. And
I'm so glad you're on board.
I am so on board.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners are too. And if you need any information about CPR classes, if you'd like Katie's information, my information, it will be all linked down below. I also want to give a shout out to Nicole Mello for bringing us together.
Yes,
and bringing me into this initiative.
Yes.
And yeah, we're gonna map it.
We are. We're gonna map it.
Yes, we are. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
And write in with your questions.
Absolutely.